People of YouTube, F-Man Critic back, and, well, yesterday I reviewed a movie that was an animated DreamWorks movie that just had an anniversary. Well, guess what? Today I'm reviewing another animated DreamWorks movie that also hit an anniversary, actually. But it's not just any DreamWorks movies, but this is actually their very first DreamWorks movies, ANTZ. Yeah, to be honest with you guys, I heard about, I didn't properly do my research on this, but I heard that this movie, the maker of this movie, he had some kind of conflict with Pixar, I believe. A lot of people compare this to A Bug's Life for obvious reasons, but, apparently, before Pixar was, for A Bug's Life was made, one of the writers, I don't know, I believe that one of the writers for this movie worked at Pixar, and he's like, screw it, I'm making a movie about bugs, and, they were trying to figure out, I didn't properly do my research on this, guys. I'll talk about this more if I ever get to reviewing A Bug's Life, alright? I didn't properly do my research on this, so, look, all I know is someone used to work for Pixar, but they ended up working on this movie instead. And I gotta say, for DreamWorks' very first movie, I gotta admit, ANTZ is actually a pretty solid movie. Honestly, it's got some decent casting choices, like Woody Allen as Z. See what they did there? His name is Z. The thing is called ANTZ. That's clever. They got Sylvester Stallone. They're mostly just characters. Mostly the ants are basically just their characters in real life, really, But what's this movie about outside of being DreamWorks' very first movie? Well, it's about our main character, Z, who's depressed about his life. He was not cut out to be a worker, he wants to know if there's more out there. Well, one of these days, he's at a bar, he listens to another ant having a PTSD, talking about some place called Insectopia, a place where no rules, no colony, where everywhere is food, and, he thinks it'd just be that easy. Anyway, he meets a girl who ends up being the princess named Princess Bala, and, they kind of hit it off, and, he ends up dancing with her, but she only came here just to cut loose, really, and she's really engaged to the villain of the movie, General Mandel, but we'll get back to him later. Anyway, Z, he wants to see Bala again during the ball, because, she's, the first woman, he believes that she's, the one that will make his life not miserable, She seems perfect in his opinion, and, and since, apparently in Z's world, there are two jobs that an ant can be, a worker or a soldier, and since his friend, and, Weaver, which is played by Sylvester Stallone, he basically asks him, hey, can I switch places so I can be in the army and go see Princess Bala? And I'm not gonna lie, I do love this joke.
Do you know how much trouble you can get into for even talking about impersonating a soldier? You can get in trouble just for listening to someone talking about impersonating a soldier.
Anyway, Weaver agrees because there's going to be some hot worker girls. And, Z, he goes to the army and, with the termites, it did not go well. He's the only survivor. The only friend that he makes dies in his arms, just as a head. Anyway, Z's welcomed back into the thing as a hero, as a war hero, but eventually he becomes a war criminal because when he confronts Princess Bala about, the night they had, and he gets surrounded by the villain and then the queen, and, he kind of freaks out, and then he kind of takes Bala with him, and they kind of get taken out of the ant colony, and those two are out of the ant colony, and with this part, I'm not gonna lie, this part is pretty freaking, you see, there's a scene where someone has a magnifying glass, and, they're basically just doing what you do with those and just shooting ants, but I'm not gonna lie, this ant's death is pretty freaking crazy, I won't lie, it's honestly, just watch.
It's beautiful.
Which way? Get out of there!
Like, Jesus Christ, that is just crazy, that is. Is like seriously, he just disintegrated. All you could see left was his teeth. Jesus. Anyway, it's basically now your typical road trip adventurer, because when he sees something that the drunk PTSD aunt he told him at the bar, he realizes Insectopia could be a thing. So he takes Bala to the thing, and she doubts it, and being the snooty princess that she is, she doesn't believe it. She orders him to take him back to the colony and kind of insults him. And honestly, we get the most weirdest line in the entire movie. Like, when people remember this movie, they remember this line that Woody Allen says.
You know, I was gonna let you become part of my most erotic fantasies, but now you can just forget that.
Okay, keep that guy far away from me.
Like, seriously, I can't imagine all the children that imitated that scene, or all the parents that were shocked to hear that come from this movie. Hell, there's a lot of stuff that this movie got away with. They said a lot of stuff like crap and hell and damn it. I mean, I get it. It was a different era back then, but goddamn, for DreamWorks' very first movie, they really did have a bit of a, like seriously, like that part was just crazy. Anyway, it just becomes like, eventually those two, they just share their stuff of, like, Z explains that he's tired of being a worker, and Princess Bala, she's just basically telling her what life is like as a princess, and how she's not too big on her fiancé, a General Mandar, But along the way, they do come across something that they do think is Insectopia, but it was a picnic ground. And then some stuff happens, and, I gotta say, although we never see a human, I mean, we see, like, hands and just feet, but we never see a human. I gotta admit, what is it called? All I'm saying is, from the ANTZ's perspective, it's actually pretty cool. Like when they're climbing on top of a human, it's actually pretty like damn cool. And all in all, it just looks pretty cool. Anyway, they get stuck to a piece of gum, and then it gets removed off the shoe. And again, I gotta say, for DreamWorks' very first movie and I gotta admit, I just gotta say this though, the animation in this movie actually is a tad outdated, but at the same time, it does hold up really well. The character models and the locations, they actually do look pretty good. They still hold up in some ways. Sure, some backgrounds look a little, but most of the time, the animation does hold up. I mean, look at this scene, actually. They managed to make a trash can full of rotten garbage look beautiful. I'm not joking. I mean, look at this picture. You gotta admit, this actually looks pretty. This looks pretty. Even shit can sometimes look beautiful. Yeah, like, once again, for being DreamWorks' very first movie with animation that's a tad outdated, they gotta admit, some scenes are actually kind of beautiful to look at, even if it is just a scene in a rotten garbage. Anyway, we get a little montage of Z and Bala, having a little montage, having more chemistry, in actually falling in love with each other, During all that, when Weaver took over as for Z, there was this whole... You see, this movie has, like, a message about trying to, like, make your own choices, Like, if someone told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? And they literally say that in the movie, It's basically like a make your own decisions. Don't let people tell you what to do. Make your own decision. That's what the message of this movie is. And when Weaver took over for Z, not only did he actually start falling in love with Z's co-worker, Azteca. I'm just gonna say it. The names in this movie are pretty weird. Like Z, Bala, Azteca, Weaver, Mandar. Like, those are some really interesting, strange names. I'm not gonna lie. Like, like, no offense to anyone who's called by any of those names, but still, those are like some strange, interesting names. Anyway, Weaver and Azteca actually form a romance, which honestly actually seems a lot more believable between Z and Bala, I won't lie. Those two actually are kind of cute. And there's this whole worker strike going on, being all like, if Z doesn't have to dig, I don't dig. And Z becomes more of a hero. He becomes more of an influencer and all that. He becomes more beloved, because all the workers are suddenly realizing we have a choice, Anyway, and Mandar doesn't want this to happen. So he beats the living snot out of Weaver to get info, and during the whole thing, Bala gets kidnapped by this dude, and he manages to get, and Z manages to make it back to the colony with the help of a drunk wasp, also they met earlier, who only helped him out because that's what his poor departed wife would have wanted. Anyway, when he makes it back, they all figure out what Mandar's plan is. Yeah. So, Mandar, the villain, General Mandar, the villain of the movie, he's basically your typical strong conquers the weak. We need to flush out you're weak and become strong. That's basically his whole character. He's basically like, he just says strong conquers the weak, and weak will never survive. And his whole plan is to get with Princess Bala, flood out the colony, and the strong ants stick around for the colony, for the new colony. So, yeah, that's basically his endgame there, He tries to flood out the weak ants, and because since one ant just didn't make his own decisions, the entire place nearly gets flooded, but thankfully, they perform a ant chain, I want to say, and, while he's giving out his speech, each classic dictator move, Z and all the ants, they come together, and, General Mandar, he tries to kill him, but he ended up getting himself killed, and Z, he almost drowns, but with the power of love and the whole, he gets together, Azteca and Weaver, they get together, and, and Z narrates saying, I'm working with a new therapist, helping me get in touch with my inner maggot. Me and Bala have started a family accidentally, have a few thousand kids, and, things for the colony are actually looking great, And once again, we actually get a beautiful visual of Central Park. It's, once again, for being DreamWorks' very first movie, this scene of New York, it's very beautiful and very well animated. Anyway, and that was Ants, DreamWorks' very first animated movie. I know I kept saying that a lot throughout this review, but it's true. Like, I gotta admit, it's not a bad start to eventually one of the most movie making studios out there. Like, this movie, it's got its stuff, like with the whole letting you be part of my most erotic fantasy line, and the whole and animation that's a tad strange, but at times was beautiful. Oh, and the story, it actually does manage to be decent. This movie was a decent movie and a decent start to one of the most successful studios out there. I'd give Ants an 8 out of 10. It's actually a pretty good movie. I highly recommend it. Since it's, again, DreamWorks' very first movie. Okay, I'll stop saying that now. You're probably tired of me saying it. So, yeah, go check out Ants. It's not bad. It's, it does have its stuff in there. And, yeah, I mean, I won't lie. Z, at first, he does talk too much. He does think too much. And, but, it's just, he's just a nervous ant. And he's just like, But by the end of the movie, everyone lives happily ever after. As he puts it at the end of the credits, it's just your typical boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, and, adventure happens, So, yeah, Ants is an okay movie. So yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit notification. See you guys next time. See ya!